Today is the first full day without Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary, and barring some big change that could come in a variety of different ways, including the theories that the convention could have some sort of big switch up, it is looking like Joe Biden will be the nominee. The general election will be Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, almost certainly under conditions somewhat similar to today in terms of the coronavirus. It is going to be the issue that shapes the election. And that is something that myself and Emma Vigeland, my guest yesterday, talked about, made us incredibly concerned. You know, I acknowledge that the polling has Joe Biden up right now, at least nationally. But I remember that from 2016. And so I'm incredibly nervous. We are joined by Michael Shore. I'm curious, the people that you're talking to, you have more experience than me in these national elections. How would you rate your confidence that Joe Biden can win in November if he is the nominee?
I mean, listen. First of all, experience is one thing, but the electorate changes and the people that are involved change. So it's difficult to say that just because there's experience. There's certainly things that my perspective has that a lot of people who are much more fully invested in one candidate or another don't have. But to say that it just experience, could not have been more dead wrong about 2016. But I know that was an anomalous election to a degree, and a lot of people were wrong. I've known and I've seen what has appealed to Joe Biden on the campaign trail for the past 15 months. Voters who I've been speaking to with great regularity, talk about electability in a way that is difficult to define. It's a hunch thing. It's the idea that this is the person I believe who has a better chance. My dog barks too. Better chance of beating Donald Trump than that person or that other person. And so I've come to understand, and sorry about the dog, but I've come to understand and agree that enough people think that. And I do too. I mean, I do think that there is an electability thing here with Joe Biden, where he probably has a better chance with the people that he connects with, even though connecting is going to be a difficult thing now. The other advantage Joe Biden has, which any of these candidates would have had, is that this election is a referendum on Donald Trump. It's nothing more right now. It is not about big ideas, as are discussed in your super chats and the TYT audience. And it's a shame in the sense that it's not, but that's just how it shook out this time, is that Americans, by and large, seem to want to get rid of this person, which shows why Joe Biden is up. And these numbers are a little different than 2016 in that this is an incumbent president. And when you are a favorite against an incumbent president, there has not been a lead like this early in a very long time. I think it was since the time of Harry Truman. And I'm not going to hold to that, but I think that's when it last was. So I think there are reasons also to be encouraged about his ability to win. And finally, one of the things that the audience here won't like to hear, and it's not me advocating it or saying it, is that the Democratic Party, a lot of these progressive ideas in an election that was not about issues were kind of set aside this time. And I don't think that I think that the Democrats feel that they are going to appeal to a different kind of voter and don't need as much support from the progressive. But the party itself knows that they need those people going forward when you look at the age disparity. So it will behoove them to invest in those voters now rather than, not because of the 2020 election. I don't think it's as necessary personally, but I do think going forward, they have to do it in a long-term way.
I agree. I do think, and first of all, not everyone agrees with me, but I think that the Democratic Party needs to, both to solve the problems that America faces and also for its own interests, needs to move in a more progressive direction. I desperately want them to do that. I think that that's better for everyone. It is a win-win, and not the third win for the Republican Party. They would lose, but that's one of the benefits. But they don't seem to be doing much to actually do that, which is frustrating. But I want to ask you about a few of the concerns that myself and others have been expressing about a Joe Biden nomination for some time. So let's go, individually through a few of these. One concern I have is that he has seemed very eager recently to effectively distance himself from the election. He wanted Bernie out, which I get. Bernie was running against him. He didn't want to debate him even when he was in. He didn't want to have any more debates. And the reason I talk about that is because we're in a time where coronavirus is overwhelmingly dominating the news cycle. Trump has a national stage every single day to talk. there was already less focus on the Democratic primary. Now that, effectively we're not going to have very competitive, races going forward, and we're not going to have any debates, there's going to be much less focus on Joe Biden. And I don't see anything from Joe Biden that makes me think that he's looking to fill that gap with anything new, anything to draw attention to him. And I feel like you can't beat an incumbent president if you're effectively not even part of the conversation, not really being considered. What do you think about that?
Well, listen, if I were advising Joe Biden, first of all, I thought the "where was Joe" thing was totally overblown. But if I were advising Joe Biden, I'd advise him to do exactly what he's been doing to an extent, because Joe Biden doesn't have a job. Bernie Sanders had a job. He was a senator who was voting on important stimulus, who was taking in the so much of what was being presented by the White House and by the nation. So I think that that's important. So too does Donald Trump have a job that obviously it requires him to be there every day on this. Joe Biden, I think, had he been issuing statements every day and doing the things that some people wanted him to do, I think it would have looked weak, because he could not exact any change upon what was going on. What he's been doing is having this kind of shadow cabinet of people that he's consulting with. People don't know about it. Nobody's paying attention to this race. And a lot of people, again, hard for this audience to digest. For many people, this race has been over since Super Tuesday, and certainly over a week after that. So I do think that that's something that people have to take into consideration, is that gear up for the race when you can run that race. You had nothing to gain because you were already going to win the nomination. It was pretty clear where it was going. I think that that's what he should have done. Could he have done things differently? Sure, but I don't think markedly so, and I don't think it would have made a difference in this whole conversation. Going forward, I think that's going to change.
Someone said in the chat that I should plug my op-ed. So if you want more of what I was saying there, the op-ed is available at The Hill. Does Joe Biden really want to be president? You can take a look at that. I guess
I read your op-ed, John, and A, I think he does, and B, I thought it was well written.
Thank you. And I don't mean that he doesn't have the inclination. I'm saying, is he willing to do what is necessary to win? And as Emma and I talked about yesterday, obviously we weren't big fans of Hillary Clinton. It was pretty clear. But nobody ever doubted that she was going to fight. I think that she strategically made some significant errors, could have fought in different ways, certainly. But she definitely wanted it bad. Joe Biden, to me, just seems a bit too relaxed, a bit too willing to, to Skype into CNN for 2 minutes and then mostly call it a day. I acknowledge I'm in a bubble. I am biased, but that's my perception.
Well, I think your bubble, I wouldn't just sort of disclaim it, because there are a lot of people that agree with you. You're not alone with that opinion. But I do, I think that these times and these circumstances right now are like nothing anyone has ever been through. So I think it's all a guess as to whether or not he's doing it right or not doing it right. But I think that the notion is he can't really run for president just yet. He cannot do that. And he has plenty of time to do that, and he will do that. And then I think you will likely see someone who wants to be president. Again, going back to what I said before, the other thing that makes this different is this is a referendum on Donald Trump, this election. It's exactly the election Joe Biden has wanted. And so I think he's prepared to run in this way as just an alternative to Donald Trump for the moment.
Okay, so I have two more concerns I want to raise to you. The first is how Donald Trump is going to run against him. And so we already know what he's saying about, Biden not being able to follow what he sees on TV and stuff like that. So I'm worried that is just going to be the narrative. And then the other is that the allegations from Tara Reade, Joe Biden didn't have to answer a single question at a debate about it. I haven't seen him asked about it on CNN or MSNBC, which is obviously what you want if you're Joe Biden. But Trump is going to talk about it on the debate stage. He's going to talk about it in ads. He's going to talk about it literally every day. So at some point, a reckoning is going to have to come with those allegations. My preference would have been that we had that reckoning before he was locked in as the nominee, but it's going to come. How concerned are you about those two potential narratives being injected on a daily basis, including on the debate stage, from Donald Trump?
Well, the Tara Reade thing, I think, is if you're going to have someone to run against and where that becomes a problem, I think Donald Trump is the right person to talk about it with. I think Donald Trump is going to spend far more time talking about Hunter Biden than Tara Reade, because to him, nobody cares, and certainly he doesn't care about Tara Reade. I think that he's going to go full bore on Hunter Biden. I think, he's going to go full socialist too, even though as we sit here, and especially this audience in this space knows that Joe Biden isn't a socialist. Whoever the nominee was is going to be painted as a socialist by the other side. And I think those are going to be what you're going to hear in the narrative from Donald Trump most. And then also as a way of dividing the Democratic Party, which would be strategically, if I were advising Donald Trump what to do, is to try and divide the party as much as I could, rather than go to those sort of sexy images, both literally and figuratively. And then the first part of that, I think that if you look at Joe Biden and how you engage him, I do think that when it comes to two older white men engaging each other in politics, Joe Biden is going to be tougher. He's going to be more pugnacious in a way. He's not going to laugh at, he'll laugh it off because he laughs a lot off in show, but he's not going to laugh off a lot of what's being said. And he has a different audience now. These suburban voters who like Joe Biden in states that both are red and blue are going to come to his defense in ways that they would not have for Hillary Clinton. What Joe Biden, even for the people that don't like Joe Biden, Democrats, people in our super chat right here who don't like Joe Biden is liked. And Hillary Clinton was not. And that is a big difference between 2016 and 2020, is that people came in with a visceral dislike of Hillary Clinton that doesn't exist as much or nearly as much with Joe Biden. And that's what makes it a little difficult for Joe Biden, has made it in the primaries very difficult for him. Nobody's ever said bad things to Joe Biden about Joe Biden in almost a half-century career in politics. It took him a while to get used to it. It's why he was so shocked when Kamala Harris said what she did at the Miami debate. It's why he will not be as shocked when he hears Donald Trump say those things.
One more question. So yeah. I think I know what you're going to say based on your other answers, but I assume you are not of the camp that believes that he's going to be pulled and replaced at the convention by Cuomo or whoever.
I don't. I really don't think so. I think that first of all, Black Americans who came out in droves in the South and across the country in the primaries for Joe Biden would be really upset with their party and wouldn't allow it to happen, I think, on a technical level. And there doesn't seem to be any reason for it to happen. I mean, barring a major misstep, barring something that we don't know about the nominee right now, and Joe Biden's been pretty vetted over 50 years. I just think that I don't see that, or nearly 50 years. I don't see that as happening. I don't think the convention wants it, and I don't think it's the place for it to happen. Also, the convention now happens late in August, just before the Republican convention. The Democrats do not want to seem in disarray a week before the Republicans go out there and talk about disarray. So I think there's a 1% chance. Top.
You should debate that with Cenk, because he seems pretty convinced.
Well, debate with Cenk all the time, and Cenk's right a lot, but Cenk's also, wrong a lot.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.